There we go. And then I'm gonna do, I'm going to put you, Eric, as I'm gonna spotlight you here for everyone. And so, my God, you are like adventurous or crazy or a combination of all of it. And I am so delighted to have connected with you. So take it away.
Well, thank you, Marty. It's wonderful to be here with you. You know, we've tried connecting a number of times over the past year since I came by your house in Albuquerque, and so I just really appreciate being here with you online. I'm sorry we couldn't connect in person this week.
Yep. We just missed each other. So just a little background. The Appalachian Trail literally goes right through Dalton, Massachusetts, where I went to high school. I think you knew that, Mom. And so we would see people, backpacks and everything, coming off the Appalachian Trail. And I was just there for my 45th high school reunion last weekend. And originally Eric thought that he should be there at this time. But anyway, we missed each other, but all my friends were like, give him my phone number, give him my thing. He can call me. Awesome. He wants somebody to connect with. So anyway, again, take it away.
That is awesome. And thank you again. Yeah, I was I'm about a week off. Maine hiking and New Hampshire, much slower than I anticipated. So I got set back a little bit. I'm also working on the trail. I'm writing part-time, which segues to my object, my assignment to bring something here that means something to me. Now, normally, as Marty said, my modes of transportation are my bicycle, which I rode across the country last summer and just had an eye-opening experience of a lifetime, and changed my life, really. I came back and I told my employer, I can give you one more year here at the office and then I'm done. And so I finished up in June after 25 years working my day job. And now the other mode of transportation is on foot, which I am right now. I've hiked 600 miles from Mount Katahdin in Maine to this point where I'm outside Bennington, Vermont, about to come down into Massachusetts. So normally I would show you my bike, my beloved bicycle that stuck with me through mud and rain and hail and beautiful weather, and right through the Mojave Desert in July, and took me where I needed to go. And I named it, I love my bike so much, I named it True. So, but that's my bike. I don't have it with me now because it's too heavy to carry on my back. However, my object, and you might imagine backpacking 18, 20 miles a day with 35 pounds on your back, every ounce counts. That's the mantra of through hikers of the Appalachian Trail. So I don't have a lot of extra things. I have some things at home I could show you that are symbolic of my travel, but what's symbolic about my travel here on the Appalachian Trail is this device that I'm talking to you on, my laptop computer. So I can't technically show it to you, but in another way, you are seeing it live. Now, the reason I say this is a very symbolic piece of traveling equipment is my very name. So on the Appalachian Trail, all through hikers take on a trail name. And there are any number of, I met a bone crusher last night. I've met booty chaser. There are so many different types of trail names, but mine is laptop. And you might imagine somebody found out, oh, you carry a laptop in your backpack? I'm the only one on the entire trail. Nobody's ever heard of somebody carrying a computer to through hike the 2,200 miles of the Appalachian Trail. And so they said, then your name has got to be laptop. So I happily took that on, and I get many questions about carrying a computer, and isn't it dangerous? Isn't the moisture going to kill it? Are you going to drop it? It doesn't mix with nature, things like that. But usually leads to a great conversation about, I'm a working writer, I'm working part-time on the trail. I love the balance of the physical rigor out on the trail, hiking 8-10 hours a day, combined with every 4 days getting off the trail and doing some writing. I have a part-time blogging job, for a boring job for a real estate trade publication, which pays for the trip. And then I do a newspaper column about aging with adventure. And then I have my own blog called Aging Adventurist, which Marty has participated in happily. So this is my symbol, this laptop, and it gives me a lot of pleasure. I have no problem mixing it with with nature and being in the woods. In fact, oftentimes I'm late at night in my hammock, my camping hammock, one of my cozy places on the trail, typing away another blog story or writing a daily log from the hiking adventure. So this laptop to me symbolizes adventure. It symbolizes what I can write about it. And I think, like my bike, true, I'll have to give this some kind of name because it's there with me every step of the way.
Wow. I don't know if I heard about you. I didn't know if I knew about your bike, that you had called it True.
Yeah, this took
And
place after I took a wrong turn, an ill-advised turn down in Texas in the ranch land, and it was a day after a torrential downpour. And it looked okay at the beginning, but I got about a quarter mile in and it was so muddy. So for about 10 miles, I barely made it through this thick mud, me and my bike splattering everywhere. And my bike was covered in mud. After that, I said to some folks, I said, this bike is tried and true. And I said, I've got to give it a name because I've come to love this inanimate object, like with an emotion. It was there like a trusty steed, like my horse that brought me all the way across the country. And I do feel an emotional connection to my bike. And I'm not that type of person. I really don't do this with inanimate objects, but it was there for me all the way through.
Absolutely. So I love tried and true. After I met up with Wendy out in California, I went to a friend's house who lives in Rough and Ready, California. So I like tried and true. I love that. And you've got some love coming to you in the chat, so check it out. I posted your Instagram where people can follow you on Instagram. And also, it's lovely to see Karen here, who actually ended up posting your blog. So yes, and Michael, my friend Michael, who's an author, would love to connect. So I hope you can continue that connection. And
this is wonderful. Thanks for the love in the chat.
Oh, thank you so much, Eric. It's so always good to see you. Good to see your notes, Karen. So I know that Natalee, it has, like, we're all busy people. So she did post in the chat that timing is a issue. So I'm going to invite Natalee to come up next and share her travel stuff and stories. While she's, I'm going to do that. Before she starts though, I met Natalee, let's see, probably 4 years ago or so. And she, all I can say is that I ended up booking a trip and getting some trip insurance and going through an incredibly difficult time in my life where I actually needed to cancel the trip. for mental health reasons. And Natalee skillfully and with great kindness led me through the process. And I was able to get all my money back from that trip. Hopefully I will rebook it, and I will rebook it with her. She is just a delight, and I'm grateful that you're here, and I look forward to your story.
Thank you, Marty. I first have to apologize for the mess that is behind me. My family and I recently moved into our new home and our new office. And since then I've been, doing the mom thing, and I get everybody else's space taken care of. And then mine's always the last. And I've had just a lot going on. And I just recently returned from almost a month-long trip to Paris and France. And so here I am, folks. I try to be as transparent as real as possible. So excuse me in my boxes. But I was so excited that Marty asked me to jump on here and share some of my stories from my recent trip to Paris. And Marty shared how we met. I've helped her and her sweet mom, Margot. It's so good to see her on here. And I adore Marty and have followed her journey, and she has followed with me. And so thank you, Marty, for letting me come on. But quickly, I've been in the travel industry for really, truly since I was going to college. I started out in the hotel industry and was going to actually be an attorney, and thank God that didn't work out, and I actually fell in love with travel. And I'm sorry if somebody on here is an attorney. It just wasn't for me. But in all my years of travel, I've been all over the world. Paris is the one place that has eluded me, and something in my heart has just always called me to Paris. You can see even my decor so much that I've just surrounded myself with things about Paris. And I was given an amazing opportunity within my industry to go and experience Paris and France for almost a month. And I got to do back-to-back river cruises down the Seine River. And it was just, when there's places that you dream of going to, we all have these bucket list locations, and you think, oh, I hope it's as beautiful and as wonderful as I've always dreamed. And I had a fear in the back of my head that I was going to get to Paris and I wasn't going to love her, and it was going to be too commercialized or something. I didn't even know, but it was such a pull in my heart that I think I didn't want to be disappointed in any way. And I can say without any hesitation that my time in France, I left a part of my soul there. I have never felt such peace and love being in a place. Like, it encompassed so much of me that I think has been just dying to be free, that it was beautiful. And I fell in love with the villages and all the little places along in France, and that I got to experience. And so I laughed when she's like, well, do you have something you want to show and share? And I'm like, I recently posted when I got home a picture of my bedroom of all the things that I brought home. Between my husband and I, we had 7 suitcases, and I'm like, what do I choose? What do I pull, and share with you? But so I had a handful of ideas and things that I wanted to share, but I thought, and it's hard for me to share this, but this is a beautiful thing that happens. So I have a new wedding band on my finger, and it's hard to share this, but over the past 6 years, I have been suffering greatly with my health, and I've had some really scary things going on. And about 2 years ago, right on the onset of the pandemic, I had a surgery where most of my digestive tract was rebuilt. Most of my stomach has been removed. And as a result, I've lost a lot of weight, and my wedding band that my husband gave me almost 8 years ago no longer fits, and it's a style that can't be adjusted. All the diamonds would pop out, whatever. So I've gone for years now without a wedding band. And anyway, on this trip to Paris, I was going to be able to bring my husband with me for the second half of it. And I was very excited to share. As much as I tried, I didn't want to see the Eiffel Tower sparkle without him. We had this whole thing planned the first night that he got into Paris. And so since I'm a travel agent, of course, I'm the one who makes all the plans, right? And I'm all the doing, and I'm always in charge. And it's very hard for my husband to surprise me, but he did. And we were having dinner at a beautiful rooftop restaurant that actually overlooked the Eiffel Tower, and it was sunset, and it was just a magical, beautiful evening. And my whole focus was him, our first night, and we were going to get to see the Eiffel Tower sparkle together. And we're sitting there, we're enjoying the 7-course meal that just was beyond lovely. And he's holding my hand across the table, and he reached over and he said, we really need to get you a new wedding ring. And I said, I know, but it'll happen. And in the meantime, I have these fun fake ones I can wear, And he reached into his pocket and he pulled out this beautiful, beautiful new wedding band for me. And I started crying because, one, it fits. 2, it's so beautiful and it's antique looking. And I think it just represented everything that I was already in love with France and Paris. And I have a grandbaby now, and my grandmother left a beautiful ring to me. And it represents everything that Paris ended up being for me, which is just beautiful and magic. And so, of all the little trinkets I could have shared with you, I decided to share that story, and that I now have a ring that fits. I have a ring that I'm going to be able to pass on to my grandbaby, and something special for her. And it was a beautiful time. And it just is, every time I see it, that's what I'm always going to think of, is that beautiful night in Paris. And it was amazing. So thank you for letting me share something, so personable. And I hope it didn't seem too vain, me sharing my diamond, but
Not at all. Not at all.
No.
And I'm, like I said, we're recording this, so I'm going to, we can make a clip of this that you can give to your grandbaby too.
Oh, I would love that. I would
'Cause
love that.
As you know, I feel like things are beautiful, but without the story, they're not as beautiful.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Marty, and everyone. I appreciate. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to jump off sooner than I had planned, but
No
thank you
problem.
for letting me share. And so lovely. I'm excited to hear a few more stories. And
Yes,
but thank you for letting me be a part of this.
absolutely, absolutely. And Darlene, you got some love in the chat as well, because Darlene, who I met through Women on Fire, the online community, everybody there is big into Paris and
Oh, I love it.
travel, and Paris especially. So you can, yeah, that was wonderful. Everybody's giving you lots
Oh,
and
I love it. I'll
lots of
respond.
love.
Thank you,
And we'll
everyone.
get you on Things That Matter at some point. Yes, what a love story. Yes, so thank you. And
you, Marty.
whenever you need to leave, just take care of yourself. That's
Okay,
the
great.
most important thing. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. I think, again, I am trying to keep track of the chat, but if anyone really needs to go early, please let me know. If not, I'm just gonna, and oh, you'll see I added how you can contact Natalee, okay? She's the travel concierge, and there's her information. So, and feel free to send private messages or whatever to follow up with her. Yeah, so my mom and I went on a Viking River cruise on the Danube, And other than the water level being incredibly low, and us having to move to different ships along the way, which I hear is still a problem in parts of Europe. It still was a delightful experience. So with that, I'm gonna bring Brianna, so my friend Brianna, who is, I'm just gonna, let's see, there we go. Look at the colors behind her. I love it. So I've I've known Brianna. We met at a networking event in New York City, and we became fast friends. And she's just such the gracious and generous human being. She just was like, anywhere I am, you've got a place to stay. So, and not only that, but I got to hang out with her beautiful cat, Irma, for quite a bit when I was staying there in Brooklyn. But I am so excited to hear what she's brought, because since the last time we've connected, she's on, I don't know what number now, but her big goal was to run marathons on all the continents in the world. And I don't know what her number is right now, but it's just fantastic. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
So humbling. You're the best. So yeah, I'm really fortunate and lucky to have been the first diabetic to run a marathon on all 7 continents. And
all 7.
Yes, it's really a privilege. It's not everyone is as lucky as me, but yeah, it was really special. And in one of the for one of the races, I wanted to challenge myself to do 2 marathons on 2 continents in 2 days. And so I ran Dubai and Morocco. And so when I was in Morocco, I ran Dubai first. I actually just landed, had to go right, obviously, to my hotel, sleep for a night, and then get up the next morning and run. And so I had obviously just run a marathon the day before. It's just a challenging life chapter. And so I was like, I'm going to treat myself and get maybe a Moroccan, a rug, or something just nice for my home. And so I got done with my race. The next day, I was just walking through the Central Market in Marrakesh. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar. They have snake charmers. It's just a lot going on there. And I was going to this carpet store that I had been to the day before, and I really liked their carpets, and I was pretty sure I wanted to get a rug. And on my way, there was this just the most humble, beautiful soul on earth. And he was sitting on a blanket, and he had all of these baskets just out on the blanket. And I just went up to him and asked him how much are your baskets? And I just I know that the price that he gave me was not one for a clear Westerner. It was just a local price. He was just the most gracious, honest person on earth. And so I was I was just so touched by him, just hit the eye contact that we made. I was just you're a beautiful human. And then I was how much for all the baskets? And he was just you want to buy every basket, all of my baskets, my entire stock here? And I was yeah, I'll take them all. How much for all? And it was crazy affordable, maybe $20 US for all of these baskets. So they're pretty sizable. I kept one here, but I also had many of them, all of them, in fact, that I took home on my trip on a wall in my bedroom. And I loved them so much, but recently I moved in with my boyfriend, and we had this little we just tried to shed weight. And so I gave them away on Craigslist free to this beautiful human, but I kept one of them because I was it just was so meaningful and special to me. And I packed them all up, all the baskets, and took them all home. And it was just the most pure human interaction, and just an ever-present reminder of the beauty of humanity at large. So I'm so thankful for these baskets, and I hope the universe is blessing that man and he's thriving and loving life as we speak. And then yeah, I just had one other little tchotchke here. This is the only thing that I was able to secure on the Antarctic subcontinent, because there's no souvenir shops in Antarctica, but I got this in a shop in Ushuaia at the very tip of Argentina after I completed the marathon. So it's just really special. If you ever want to go to Antarctica, just don't plan on getting people souvenirs, because there are none. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I have to say that one of the times I stayed with Brianna in Brooklyn was when she was getting ready for this move in with her boyfriend. And so she had these beautiful plates, wooden plates, and that are really flat, you know, super flat. And so, and they and stackable. And so I was able to find a space in my little RV. You can see a picture behind me. Her name is Brooklyn. And I have a little space for them. And every time I take them out, it's usually when I've got somebody in, you know, sharing a meal with me or sharing something with me, then I bring them out, and I always think of you. So thank you so much. So I am entering some information about Brianna in the chat. And so I just want to say, Brianna, I mentioned it today on my live, Instagram live, that Brianna is not a digital nomad in the same way that I am. I live part-time in New Mexico, part-time in Vermont, part-time on the road. And other people who may be here that live in Airstreams or van life or whatever, but realistically, her creation lives online, and so she provides mid-sized companies and larger with all kinds of assistance from a wonderful crew, therefore crew Bloom, a wonderful crew that can basically become part of your team to help you grow and scale and connect and all of the above. So if you or anyone you know has you know, might need this extra, it's really not a person. I mean, that's the thing. I still don't know how to describe it exactly, but if you need this extra like foundation, this like basically a department, if you need a department that can do all the things that you need, reach out. Have I done a decent job in explaining that? And
yeah, just essentially think of us as like a Fiverr or Upwork that specializes in sales and support talent. So the top 2% of global sales and support.
Ooh, I love that. Okay. And it's recorded, so I'll remember it. I can listen to it and record it and remember it. So please feel free to add any information there, Brianna. I'm sorry I wasn't able to transfer other things, but all right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. So as I also mentioned today on my live on Instagram, I have a very broad concept of travel. So travel to me does not mean, you know, that you have to go to exotic places or luxury places or, you know, anything like, you know, there's no need to travel far or wide. You can travel deep and near. And what I found with my artist friends and authors is there's a lot of deep traveling that they do to do the work that they create. And so that brings me to my next story, Cheryl, who is my friend, and I met her through the Association of Personal Historians. It used to be APH. Unfortunately, it folded, but she assists people who help people tell the stories of their life through her transcription service. And I've been grateful, a grateful recipient of that work. And I've also read some of her wonderful, fantastical traveling adventures in her book. So with no further ado, I welcome Wendy to quote unquote, take the stage. Thank you, Brianna.
Well, thank you very much, Marty. It's really nice to be here. My name is Wendy Ledger, and I've written 7 novels, but it took me a really long time to get here. And it's very funny. Marty saw a picture that I posted on Facebook for International Book Day, and it was a picture of me and my husband both sitting in these recliners and reading my first book, Joy Returns. And she said, do you want to speak at the travel hotel? And that to me was so ironic, because even as a kid, when my family would take trips, I would stay home. They would go to Hawaii and I'd be like, I'll stay with my best friend. That's okay. Because my family was kind of difficult, and I would just rather stay home. So and my husband and I joked, like during lockdown and stuff like that. I work at home. I work as a transcriber and editor and as a writer. And lockdown was not much different from what life generally is for us. But I have marvelous friends who are travelers, and I greatly admire people who travel. And maybe someday, like maybe that'll be my later life story, that I will become a traveler myself. But in the meantime, I do my own sort of traveling, which I actually started when I was young. My family would be off going to Germany or going to Hawaii or whatever, and I would be at home with my books because I was a huge bookworm even as I was little, and I would travel to places, old time London with Sarah Crew, on the farm with Wilbur, and all that kind of stuff. I was there, and it was marvelous. And so even as a young girl, I knew that I wanted to be a novelist someday, because I wanted to be able to create. I hoped that someday I would be a great enough person that I could create the magic that I was experiencing myself. And who knows if I'm a great enough person, but I eventually, over time, it took me to my mid-50s, but I finally figured out how to start writing novels, and I've written 7 since. And for me, what happened was that I tried the linear route. I tried the traditional route. I tried writing fast by myself. I got an MA in creative writing, and I even taught creative writing. I went to writing groups. I went to retreats, and that was the last one for me. So I went to a retreat. And I have to add a big caveat right here is that for some people, all these things work. But I have different kind of wiring, and for me, it was not the way for me to go. So finally, after the retreat, which was just brutal for me, I came home and I thought, I am on a very thin thread here. This is extremely tenuous. If I feel like if I don't write now, if I don't write this book, that's it. And I really didn't want it to be it. So what happened?
Yay, I'm glad it wasn't it.
I know, me
I've
too.
had fun with your books.
Me too. So what happened for me was I started thinking, okay, I know that I want my first book to be geared to a girl my age when I discovered reading the most, when I loved reading the most in my life. And that's the kind of book I want to write. And so I started thinking, like, what was it about that time? Well, it was reading. But then I also remembered things that I kind of shoved to the back of my brain because it was painful for me. Was when I was young, I loved to play the piano, and I would sit. I had this distinct memory of sitting at the bench, putting my keys on the hands, and feeling transported like a rocket ship, like I was off in another galaxies, and those high notes were like heaven. And you put your foot on the pedal, and it's like, whoa, you could do these amazing things, and no one else in the house can stop you. and you can do whatever you want. You can express yourself through these songs, all these emotions that perhaps you'd like to say in real life, but it ain't safe, man. So you go to the piano bench, you put your hands on the keys, and you go off on that rocket ship. So I thought, okay, definitely, I want to write about the girl in the rocket ship, metaphorically speaking. So the rocket ship is going to be in it. It's going to be about a girl discovering music, and the piano specifically. But how do we start this journey, this trip? Something really bad has to happen. And I don't want it to be autobiographical. Even though everything is autobiographical, I don't want it to be like da da da. So I said, what would have been the worst thing that could have happened to me when I was a kid? Well, the worst thing would have been if my father had died, because my dad was the most important person to me in the world. So in the book, that's what happens. That's the way the book begins. The girl's dad dies. And music becomes the way for her to navigate her way through life. And I decided, okay, so that's that. Okay, so the painful part of the memory for me about piano, and why there was times in my life when I would forget that there was something that I loved that much, is what happened with me was my family moved to California, and I was an impressionable pubescent teenager, just around that age. And I had a beloved teacher in Michigan, and she wasn't coming with us. And without her influence, I decided that piano was dumb. Even though we moved the piano was there. Piano was dumb. Rock and roll and guitar was the way to go. So, I took some lessons, always had some, skeevy guy, making a pass at me, and I would stop the lessons. And so that just shut everything down. So that was it. So I decided in the book, the girl was going to continue to play like that. No question about it. She's going to continue to play. So I went along my merry way on this book. I don't know, not so merry some of the times, I would, sometimes if the terror would, hit me, I'd get the notebook out and I would just write the list of scenes. Every day when I would start, I write, this is what happens before I would go into the book. But anyway, so I start writing it, and all of a sudden this character showed up in my head, which kind of reminds me of like when you're traveling, and you're on the airplane and this weird guy is next to you, or this, kind of, strange lady or something like that. And you go like, why is this happening? So this character showed up in my head, and she's like a grandmother type. And she's like, okay, I'm in this book. I want to be in the first scene. I want a huge entrance. That's the first thing I demand. And I just laughed. I was like, you're a voice in my head. I'm not going to listen to you. But the voice didn't go away. And a thing that kind of magnified it for me is that I had a really abusive grandmother when I was growing up. And so there was no way that I went to put this grandmother in my book, but she wouldn't go away. And so I finally said, fine, I'll write you in this draft, and I'm thinking to myself, like, haha, like I'll put this in the draft, but she's never going to make it out of the first draft. But she ended up becoming a beloved character in the book. And she became someone who I thought of with fondness and affection. And I was really glad that she wouldn't give up on me. She wouldn't give up with me. And she made sure that she was part of my trip. And through this journey, kind of back to my childhood, things changed. And that's what I really think is so magical about writing is I've done this, I've written 7 books now, and I'm got a first draft of the 8th, is that you can take things that you love, or take a pain point that happened to you, and you can transform it through your art. And I just think that is just such an amazing thing. So anyways, this is the book. It feels like a magical object. Thank you, Marty, for letting me share.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you so much. So yes, you are getting some love in the chat as well. And so I, again, am trying to keep aware of the chat and other information. Yes, I added some information from Wendy about finding more. I've enjoyed. I didn't really know you had 7, but anyway, I've read a couple, at least 2, if not 3 so far, and I look forward to reading more. So yes, there's all kinds of ways to travel, right? So Wendy took us on a different type of travel. You didn't like traveling with your family. So that's kind of interesting because Michael is a world traveler and he does family and world schooling with his family. So it's quite a different thing, but we find our way through the world. So thank you so much, Wendy, for sharing. And I am going to end up bringing up Kelli, if you're willing to do. And thank you again, Wendy. Thanks for joining. And I am going to change the spotlight. There we go. And let's see, spotlight you. Okay, you're spotlighted. Yes.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Kelli, for joining me. Are you joining me from Rough and Ready?
I am.
Okay,
Yep.
so I thought you were joining me from Rough and Ready, California, because I could kind of tell with your backdrop that you're in the Airstream, and we definitely need to make a time because you're purchasing a tiny house, and I've been fascinated with that lately. So, but I am so grateful to Stephanie for introducing us. And I know you've done some travels, but I didn't get a chance to hear as many as I'd like to. So take it away.
Thank you. Thanks. It's so fun hearing everybody's stories. And I'm excited to be here. So I think that my show is probably unique to all of you, actually, but I'll be interested to hear if somebody has heard of this. It's actually 2 things, but it's the same thing. So in a sense. So when I was living in Tulum, Mexico for a couple of years, one of my last weekends there, my neighbor in the apartment below me was having this gathering, and they were learning how to work with something called the selenite swords of light. And I didn't initially sign up to attend this event because it was going to be held somewhere else. And I was like, well, I'm leaving. I've got a lot of stuff to do before I move. So, but that original location fell through. And then my friend who lived below me offered to host it at her place. And so there was this little voice inside of me that said, no, they can't have a weekend gathering with something called the selenite swords of life below your apartment and you won't be there. So I was like, okay. So I decided to go. I'm like, I just have to walk downstairs, it's not going to take long. So it was a weekend thing, and it was all day, both days. And so I showed up early to see if they needed any help before everybody arrived. Actually, it was the day before that weekend started. I showed up to see if they needed help setting up. And I walked in, the answer was yes. So I walked in, and one of my other friends was placing these selenite swords on a table together for people to practice with and work with over the weekends. And I walked over, I immediately was like, she had a big room that we were all going to be in, but it was like I beelined like straight towards this table. And I was immediately drawn to it. So I like, what is going on over there? And so I walked over, and there was probably 40 different selenite swords on the table. I'm going to show you what they look like, obviously. And so there were these two on opposite ends of the table, and I just knew, I was like, oh my God, these are supposed to be mine. I didn't even know what these things were before I went downstairs to my friend's apartment. But it was like these two things were like, we're yours and we want to work with you and we're meant to be together. And they weren't originally together. They're made as separate things. And so from that moment on, I worked with these swords the whole weekend. We worked on each other. We learned different processes to go through to help people with healing and clearing. And I do clearing and energy work. So as part of the work that I do, it's not all that I do. But so I asked her if I could pick them up. I did. And then it was like, they never left my hands. And I took them home that night, both nights. It's like, I hadn't purchased them at that point, but I was like, they want to come with me. And so they just kind of became part of me. I traveled with them. I took them to Ireland. I've taken them all over the place. They've moved with me. So this is what they look like. I'll try to, there's a female and a male. This is the female. This is the male. So this part is selenite. And then I'm going to tell you all about what's in here because they're pretty magical. But I don't know if you can see, but the tree of life is on both of them. So they're really beautiful. And so I knew I was going to buy them. They're not the cheapest things in the world. That with when you understand all of the care and the love and attention that goes into them, you understand why. But they are really magical. And I use them to work on like the subtle energy body and the physical body system. So the chakra system, meridians can be open and activated. Negative energy can be transformed into positive energy. There's all kinds of stuff that I've done with these. And we learned how to do a bunch of different things over the course of that weekend. And so within each handle, there is, actually, hold on, I'm gonna open this thing because I have to read it because there's a lot. So in the handle of the selenite swords, there are power crystals. There's over 425 crushed crystals in the handle of each sword. So that's in both of these. And then there's a powerful blend of what the creator of these says. It's like a proprietary blend of crystals that creates like this potent alchemy. And the swords are, they say the swords are the most powerful energy tools available on the planet at this time. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I do know that you pick them up and you feel the energy in them. Like you just can't. I was drawn to the table. It was just like, what's going on over there? And so there's crystals, there's meteorites, there is minerals from the temples of Egypt, Peru, and Japan. There's sacred waters from Mount Shasta, from the Ganges, from Lake Titicaca, from a glacier in Banff, from Mount Fuji, sacred springs in Ireland, the Nile, and Antarctica. And then there's also plant medicines of Peru. And so then around the handle, so underneath this grip part, there are over 500 pictures of ascended masters, angelic beings, sacred geometry forms, DNA activations, symbols, acupuncture patterns, crop circles, keys of Enoch. There's all these powerful images. So you just can't help but be drawn to them. But when I specifically work with these, I just feel like they were meant to be with me. I don't know any other way to describe it, but I sleep underneath them. They're in like a shelf above my bed. And they're and I can work with them through Zoom with my clients or in person.
Oh my God. So you're getting a lot of questions and a lot of stuff in the chat.
I figured.
And those are like, wow, like you, Wonder Woman of energy is, and somebody just said, are they allowed on a plane? My friend John
Yes, I
said,
take them on a plane.
you have to check it.
I do. You check them because they won't let them go in your carry-on because they're, we don't tell them they're swords. We don't say they're swords. We just
Crystals.
say they're crystals, but I check them when I travel with them.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. That was amazing. And I was in and around that energy, and I just felt a connection right away. And I just wanted to say that, okay, I am putting in, I think, yes, I am putting in information about how to reach out to Kelli. So Kelli is as you can say, energy worker, but she does leadership work and people who want to step into their best lives. And if you feel like you have this burning desire to do something amazing with your life, different with your life, and you need some guidance and support, check her out. So thank you so much. So it's so interesting because I think my mom is Margot Hickey, who's on this call. And she was the one who first did all the stuff and connected me with any stuff related to crystals and power and all of the metaphysics stuff. It's all started many moons ago with my mother. So it's nice to have her on. So yeah, check out the love in the chat for you. All right, so I think I got a yes from Annie, who I met through, I think, Location Indie somehow. I'm not exactly sure the connection. There are people like that. Oh, thank you, Darlene, for sharing. And anyway, we connected on Instagram. She's Into the Bold is the name of her account there. And I am looking forward to, all I know is that she's showing up, generously, being consistent, persistent, and generous, which are always people that I connect with. And she's living her best life. I look forward to knowing more. So with that, I'm going to pass the baton, as they say, and let you take it from here, Annie.
Awesome. It's wonderful to meet you in person ish. I mean, meet you, right? Yeah, I'm not even sure. I feel like somebody sent me your website and was like, check this out. And I'm not even sure, but the internet gods hooked us up, and I'm really happy about it. So thank you for.
Me too.
Yeah. And so I'm Annie. Into the Bold is my thing. I'm all about indie travel. So helping people really see the world in the ways that they most want to. I'm a rebel and a bit of a misfit. And I have always hated people telling me what I have to do. And so that extends to the traditional travel industry of don't tell me I have to go that way. I will not. I will find another way. So my rebellious spirit certainly comes from my mother. She is an incredible human. And so my story today is about how a Metallica concert took my mom and I to Norway. So yes, this was the holiday season of 2018. I had a day job that the holiday season was totally crazy, but Metallica was coming to town. I have gotten to see them a few times. And my mom had become a fan over the years of me loving them as a teenager. And so we had tickets to all go, my husband and I, and my mom and my stepdad. And so it was December. I had just worked like a 14-hour day. My brain is totally not functioning. We meet my parents for dinner. It starts dumping snow, and they live up like near Park City, like up in the mountains. My mom's not feeling well. In all of the insanity of the holiday season, I didn't even bring our tickets. Like, this whole thing was an absolute disaster. And so we all just decided, like, okay, this is not happening. We are going to just call it a night. This thing is a bust. And so for me, I was like, gosh, I really want my mom to see Metallica. So I started looking at the tour dates to see where else they were playing, and they were playing in Prague. And I was like, all right, I love Prague and I would love to take my mom. So I was like, all right, Mom, let's take a trip and go see Metallica. Like, we missed this, it didn't happen. And so we were talking about it, and I was like, okay, I mean, like, that's just a few days for the concert. Where else do you want to go? Like, what else do you want to do? And I also, besides my rebellious spirit, get my deep, deep love and appreciation for nature from my mother. Like, family vacations when I was a kid, she always loved horses. We would literally ride the horses into the back country for a few 5 hours and like camp for a week. Like, this is family vacation when I was younger. So when we started talking about places she would like to go in addition to Metallica, she really wanted to go to Norway. And so I said, okay, well, then we'll figure out how to do this. And, you know, literally travel planning is what I do. So I'm like, cool, okay, we're going to figure this out. And as we started talking more about it, she was just like, you know what? Let's just go to Norway. Let's just skip Metallica again and go to Norway. So this was the last international trip I got to take before COVID. So my mom and I, a couple years previous to this, had done our ancestry.com DNA and found that, like, both of us, I mean, basically we are more British than the people who live there. Like 93% of my DNA comes from that one island. And so we decided to spend a few days in London on either side so that we could, I'd been before, but she had never been. So I drug my mom through. We spent a couple days in London, and because I'm an indie traveler, do not stick me on a cruise ship. That is a no for me. So I did all of the research and found this amazing, it was a working ferry. It's Hurtigruten is the name of the company, that takes you along all of the same route, basically. But it's just a passenger ferry. Like, you can drive your car on it. This is not a cruise ship. Like, the entertainment was like, there was a couple lectures in the lecture hall, and you can sit on the observation deck, figure it out. And so it's the ferry that the locals use to take from place to place. And because the travel gods always hook me up, I don't even know how some of these things happen. But one of the things about this particular ferry is that you can get on and off, you know, at any of the stops. Like, you can get off the boat for a few days, spend some time there, and like get on the next one that comes through. So the Lofoten Islands had been a place that I really wanted to see. So we decided that we're going to get off the ferry there and spend a few days. And one of, like I said, travel gods hooked me up. We just happened to be there at the time of the Viking festival. So I know, like, this is what I mean. I can't plan this. This was just that magical. So this is my little show, my little Viking ship here. You know, I'm not a big fan of collecting souvenirs, but every once in a while I'll come across something that I am just like, to commemorate this experience. So I picked up this little Viking ship. We spent a few days, you know, we spent the time at the festival. I mean, I've got the coolest video. Like, they made a replica literally of this ship that was like, they had it sailing around the little lake there, and they had people in like traditional costume. And I got this like insane photo, again, I don't even know how these things happen, of this woman in traditional dress, like standing at the shore of the lake, and she's just watching, because this, you know, would take passengers out there. But so I have this picture of her with a boat like this in the background. It literally looks like it could have come from the Viking times, because it's just this like old school, like this original Viking looking ship, and this woman in traditional dress, like she's standing there watching the ship come in, like waiting for her love or something. It was just the most perfect moment that I just got to capture. So yes, that is, I mean, we did take a train, so it wasn't just boat, but we took the train across Norway from Oslo to Bergen, which was in my top 2 most beautiful train rides ever. The other is in Scotland, just FYI. But this, I got to share this experience with my mom, that this woman who has just instilled in me the rebellious spirit and that love of nature, and that it was just so, yes, you're right, John, Metallica should have been there instead of at Prague. 100%. But I got to watch her experience these, you know, the boat goes right into the fjords, and it is epic. There is nothing quite like it. And so that was such a special thing to me. I have only gotten to take one other international trip with my mom. And then, you know, less than 6 months later, the entire world shut down. And that was something that I just got to hang on to through all of that. And so, yeah, that's my story of how a Metallica concert.
I'm thinking, you know, so many of my story sharers, Annie, have shared very similar stories to one another. I think that's actually in the probably thousands of people that have shared stories. I don't think once I've heard anything similar to that. But then again, you are a rebel, and just different. And we need to continue our conversation, because
yes, please. Yes, I even thought about that. I was like, I mean, it's planes, trains, and automobiles. It's a boat. I just can't do what everyone else is doing, so we're just gonna roll with it.
Exactly, and those are just suggestions. It's anything travel. And I don't know if you saw the posts on Instagram or wherever they were, but it was about the Viking River cruise, and it was just like some guy who ended up saying, or some gal who ended up saying, when I realized that you wouldn't go to the towns and be able to pillage
right,
as part of the experience.
I mean,
it's like, I'm not signing up for that. And I was just like, oh my God.
That seems about right.
So thank you so much. And yes, we have so much in common, because I was so grateful to spend a week on the Danube with my mother several years ago. I don't think I could have ever convinced her to go to Metallica, had any interest in that whatsoever. But even with us moving from ship to ship because of the lack of water, we still had a wonderful time. So I'm grateful that you've had that experience, and me too. So, I love that. I'm definitely a travel misfit. Love it. Yep. Not going to do what everybody does. And, so, well, then I think our next up is going to be Michael, because thank you so much, Annie. I look forward to continuing our connection and getting to know more of your work in this world. And I just wanted to turn it over to Michael, who is a bit of a, well, not even a bit, I would just say is a rebel, is doing many things. Oh, that's interesting. I practice what I all aggressive tourism. No, is that what you mean, Annie? I mean, Karen?
Yeah, I was just about to explain it in chat.
Oh,
It's cramming a lot into all at once but it's still having an experience, right? So when I went to Scandinavia, I was in Copenhagen, and in one day I climbed 3 towers across the city in one day. Went to Christianshavn and also did a boat tour, and it was the best day of my life. But I was by myself, right? And so I could go at my own pace, but I still managed to have an amazing lunch on the square and just people watching, and didn't ever feel stressed out. It was great.
wow, right, because you weren't trying to negotiate with anybody else. It was just on your timeline.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's aggressive tourism.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for that little side note there, Karen. And Karen is partners with Eric, and is totally like cool with his unique ways of being aging adventurist and living his life his way. So that's amazing.
I'm his ground control.
Yes, you are. I like that name. That's awesome. All right. So without further ado, so Michael is definitely I am so grateful to connect with him through an organization called Location Indie, which when I was stuck in West Asheville, North Carolina, at the beginning of the pandemic, for the first 10 weeks of the pandemic, I had been paying attention to them, their emails, because a friend wanted to do a little article about me and my van life with Brooklyn, my RV. And she's like, I'm like, what are you going to do with it? And she said, I'm going to submit it to these location independent publications. And I'm like, what are location independent publications? What are you talking about? And anyway, so I Googled what's, location independent, and I came across this online community called Location Indie. And I am so grateful. I know that I have several people, including Matt, who will hopefully be the next story sharer. Several people who are on this call, and Mellissa, who is here as well, all from this community. And I'm just so grateful because we do travel differently, like you were saying, Annie. We don't want to go in the whole crowd, or go doing all the things that everybody's, or doing these massive cruise things, which all have their place and all have their people. But that's not how we do it. And I am so grateful to Michael, and then I'll turn it over to him, for helping me map out the almost 5 months of my road trip. Once I left Denver in March, he helped me map out my entire route, including getting to Twain Hart and Rough and Ready. And I don't know who else is in this call, but many of the people that are here, and Mellissa and Amalia, who's there, and John and Mark, who I met up with in Portland at the World Domination Summit. So Michael ended up helping me map out this very kind of bizarre, and I'm not going to follow anybody's rules because I'm driving. So he was very gracious and generous and understanding. And so take it away, Michael.
All right. Thank you, Marty, for all that. I don't even know what to say after all that. But I do want to just say a huge thank you to Marty for these amazing events. I know I've been on many of them with you, and they're just phenomenal. There's such wonderful things that you do here. And I feel bad because I feel like I'm spamming everyone. I think everyone who's come on so far, I've reached out to you because I've had experiences similar to you. And I've been like, oh my gosh, I want to keep talking to you. So I'm connecting with pretty much everyone I think that has come on already, I've sent a direct message to. So yeah, this is just wonderful. Great way to meet new people and share experiences. So thank you for putting these on, Marty. But yeah, so my thing is I do a lot of things. I call myself a multi-potentialite. Basically, I do everything and I love everything. We started a travel organization that was supposed to be built on like family travel, but that has morphed into a whole bunch of different things. And we're working on creating a social enterprise that's based on bridging cultures through travel, education, and service. And what we do, we try and help families find purposeful ways to travel by finding service opportunities that are locally run, locally managed, and education opportunities, because we have 2 kids that we world school. So yeah, that's what we do. And I'm also an author, and I have this my background thing because I do a whole bunch of different things. I have a bunch of different channels and everything. But the story I want to tell is for our road trip down to Mexico. We road trip down to Oaxaca this past summer. We were down there for about 2 months, and it was a whirlwind of a trip. So we love traveling. We've traveled all over the place. My 9-year-old had been to 20 countries before the age of 7. We've been all over the place. We spent a lot of time in Europe, but this was our first time road tripping. We road tripped through the US and through Europe, but this was our first time road tripping down to Mexico with our 2 kids now and our dog. And yeah, we were not as prepared as I thought we were. So we did all the preparation. We did everything we were ready for. We read all the information all over the, all over the web. But it was not, I don't know. I don't think it's something you can be prepared for until you actually do it. Something that Marty experienced on her road trip. But yeah, we had a wreck in Monterey. We got a ticket in Mexico City. There's like $400. We got a ticket in Acapulco for doing a illegal turn that wasn't really illegal, just a whirlwind of an experience. And we were running from Hurricane Agatha this summer because we were supposed to go down to Puerto Escondido, and we we're 2 hours away. And my mother-in-law calls and says, "Hey, do you know there's a hurricane about to hit Puerto Escondido?" Like, no. So we had to route through the mountains, take a 15-hour detour running away from the hurricane. So it was crazy. But long and short of it, we finally found our way to Oaxaca. We had a wonderful experience, and we got to meet some amazing people. But this was kind of the, like, I don't know, the epitome of what we do for travel. So we hosted a world schooling hub or world schooling pop-up. So that's where we had a bunch of different families come in, and we took them around Oaxaca and showed them around different cultural experiences, right? And one of the experience we did was we went to paint alebrijes. So alebrijes are these little, you can kind of see it hopefully. For those who don't know, they're little creatures that are, my wife is better at explaining it. How would you explain it? Spirit guides. There you go. My wife is over here, so she can hear me. But yeah, they're spirit guides. For anyone who has kids and they've seen Coco, you would know what that is too. But the experience was amazing because we went to this little city and it was off the beaten path, and we were trying to find a affordable option for a big group to go paint these alebrijes, because you can find them on Airbnb, you can find them all over the place, but they're very expensive. And the group that was coming is a group that likes to do free travel and not spend a whole bunch of money. So we found this tiny city, and we walked into this place. It was this man's home, and him, his daughter, and his wife run this business, and they carve these little figurines for a living. This is all they do. They've been doing this for generations. And it is so cool to see how he has been passing this on through his kids, and now his daughter is sitting there apprenticing for him. So we got to learn how they actually do that through their family and through just progressing this tradition through the generations. And it was really cool to see the daughter would actually do so the way it works, you would paint a one base paint color on here, and then you'd paint further designs onto it and make it very elaborate. But the apprentice of the daughter would do just the base coat, and she'd do tons of them, and she'd have them all over the table, just painting all the base coats. And then her dad would come in and start putting all the intricate designs. So we have some of ours that we painted that we kept with us. They're not as awesome as you'll see. If you go Google it, you'll find some amazing ones. This is some that we worked on. It looks a lot easier than it is. It is very, very difficult, but they make it look so easy. So yeah, these are some of the ones that we did. This was, let's see, one that my daughter did, my daughter Sarah. And this was one, a pig that my wife did. Oh, sure. and then this is my son's little shark. He's going through a phase that he loves baby sharks. So I had to paint him a shark, and he was super excited about it. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, so that's my story. Oh, Sarah wants to say hi real quick. Hold on. Can you-
Hi, Sarah. Hello
Hi.
again. Hello again.
Hi.
So if you know any other world schoolers or families that are traveling and wanting to, do education on the road, do check out. I think I put information. We're getting lots of stuff in the chat, but Michael, feel free to add. I put in your book information, but please add any other information you want. So I just want to, and Coco, yes, like Wendy said, is a Pixar movie. And it's lovely, Cheryl. So I just want to be mindful of time. I love this, but I also am like, oh my God, like it seemed like the last time I looked at the clock, it seemed like we had plenty of time, but to fit everybody else in, I ended up asking if, I'm pretty sure I asked if Matt would be next, our next story sharer. And he said yes. So I'm going to have you go next, and I'm just going to do my best to fit as many of you in. Again, sorry for not managing the time as well as I might have, but it's so good to see you. And Matt is somebody also who I met through Location Indie. And he was just in Albuquerque not that long ago. I know my wife is on this call off camera, I think, but listening. So he was on Route 66, and I was like, you got to check out these places. So take it away, Matt.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you like Marty messaged me and it's like, do you want to share this? I'm like, oh, what do I share? I'm not a fancy travel content creator, or, I just travel for me. But I've learned in talking to a lot of travel content creators that it's okay that I just travel for me.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, I just got back from a month-long road trip around the US. I quit my job and left Cincinnati, where I live, without a plan, and just kind of went on the road and came back when I felt like I needed to. So my story is going to be about why I'm into travel and why it's such a passion of mine. And it's because of a trip I took to Europe when I was 12.
Oh.
So back in 1998, there was no iPhones and Facebook. We had photo albums. So I went to Hungary. And the story goes, my grandmother, she is my grandparents are from Hungary. They, after World War II, they immigrated to Australia, where my dad was born, and spent 2 years there. And then they came to the US and eventually found their way to Cincinnati. But growing up, my grandmother would always tell all 10 of her grandchildren that when we are old enough, she's going to take us to Hungary. And the original plan was that she would take each of us one at a time when we turned 10. My first cousin, she turned 10. She and my grandmother left and went to Hungary for 2 weeks. And then my grandfather got sick, and my grandmother realized that she couldn't leave him, home alone. And so when he passed away, she started taking the trips again. And then she's like, okay, there's 9 more of you. I can't do this. I'm getting too old. So she ended up taking us in groups of 5 total. So it was not that much quicker. But yeah, I think that trip was like, opened up my eyes. Even I was 12 and I knew that any other trips I took between, then and my adult until I was an adult, were going to be with my parents or family or whatever. But I knew I wanted to keep traveling, and it was just such an eye-opening experience to get on an airplane for 8 hours, and land in a country with you didn't understand the language or this, what people were saying around you. And so, yeah, she was 70 at the time. And I also traveled to Hungary with her again in the later years, but first time it was, she planned the trip or had a travel agent. Like, I think she probably went to like a travel agency office, and booked everything. It was just so different. And then,
Yeah.
10 years later, I was old enough and I booked a trip and we went over there for weddings and stuff. So amazingly, she's traveling over to Europe in her late 70s, early 80s. And the cool thing is that she's 94 years old, still living alone here in Cincinnati. But we feel like she could go, but she's just decided that, she's too old to make that journey anymore. But it was amazing that she was able to make that journey in those years. But yeah, growing up, it was always a talk. She always had stories of her childhood, growing up during the Holocaust and stuff, and never runs out of stories to share with us. My aunt, who sadly passed away, was a published author herself and wrote her story in published form. So that's my story of how travel happened. And I haven't lost this photo album in all these years. And so it's just through it.
I love it.
Picture. So I was pretty excited and I went and pulled this out today. But I did realize there's one picture missing, which I'm bummed about. I don't know where it is. Must have taken out to show somebody else. But there's a town in Hungary called Kartal, my last name. It's not a significant town, small town, but it was important at 12 years old to drive down the road to see a sign with your last name on it. And that's town. So I remember specifically doing that and, telling us that we're going on a little trip, outside, an hour outside of town. We can't tell you what it is. And we just pull up and there's a sign that says our last name on it.
Wow.
So,
amazing.
Yeah. So that's my quick story.
Oh my God. Well, I do have to say one of my mom and my favorite part of our trip on the Danube is that the end of our trip was in Budapest. And unfortunately, because of the water issue, we didn't have very much time there, but it was, it's like that experience made me think I've got to get back there.
Yeah. Anybody that visits Hungary or Budapest is, always loves it.
Yeah.
Of course, I had a different experience. At 12, we do different things than you do when you're, as an adult. And plus I have some cousins and family over there. So it was, more of a home life type, scene. But yeah, she ran us around like crazy, seeing all this stuff, and everything. And
everybody's saying you've got the coolest grandmother, Matt. You've got so much love in the chat.
Thank you. And finding, yeah, and also, I remember we at 12, 10, between ages 10 and 13, however old we were, the group of us, we fought, we bickered, we got at each other's nerves. And she had to just put up with us for the whole 2 weeks. But luckily we all made it home and we're all still close.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I so appreciate that you're sharing the story. And yes, you can, it doesn't matter whether you're like lots of people who are on here have small businesses or are authors or, on this particular event or doing something, have some offer in the world. But I'm looking for everybody and anybody. I even got a message from my mom saying, if you need more story sharers, let me know. I can do it. So this is open to everybody because everybody has a story. And as far as I'm concerned, everything has has a story, and that photo album certainly does. So if you want to follow Matt, his Instagram is there in the chat. I put that there and you can stay in contact. And I know that we're right at 8:30 and I hear Eastern time. So I just want to be cognizant of the time limits of everyone. Again, sorry for misunderstandings to an extent, like not, I tried my best to say, if you want to be a story sharer, you need to do these. Are you going to do this? Do you want to be a story sharer? And I tried to get that information and then send information to do, and not like I missed some people. So anyway, if you would like to stay, we do have, I believe we have 3 more story sharers. And, but I do want to just say, please forgive me for not managing the time so well. If you have to leave, by all means do. This has been a wonderful experience, and I hope you'll join me again. But I'm staying, and whoever wants to stay can stay and listen to the rest of the people who would like to share stories. So with that, I am going to bring up Darlene, please. And I know we have Darlene, Cheryl, and John. And I hope you 3 can stay if you're able to. And again, please, my apologies. So, oh, wonderful that you're loving this, Darlene. So would you like, yay. All right. So I am going to, let's see how I can do this. I am going to get you on Spotlight. Okay. So yes, I understand people have to run. I really appreciate it and thank you very much. So
yeah, I'm sorry to have lost one of my fellow Francophiles that just had the month in.
Oh yes. Yes. Well, I hope you'll stay in touch.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, in fact, back behind my head is my first trip to Paris. It is a copy of the winged, I can't say it right, but anyway, it's from the Louvre Museum. I probably spent 3 or 4 hours there. So I am definitely an aggressive tourist who does not mind traveling solo, because I don't want somebody timing me, telling me I need to leave the Louvre in 1 hour.
And you also have another Francophile here too, Wendy.
Oh, good.
So.
Well, I related to so many stories, but my story, because of your title, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, see if I can fit it all in. So I was laid off of my job with JP Morgan Chase in 2014 after a 2-week fantasy trip to Paris and Provence, which we used every mode of transportation possibly during that time. But I decided to move back to my hometown. So I'm here in Roanoke, Virginia. I have been in New York City for 12 years. And phenomenal opportunity. You know, it's a gateway to other countries, and it really fed my desire to travel. And I didn't tell my mom, who never goes on a trip unless she's with a book tour, that I was not going to stay very long. So I put everything into storage, and I really mapped up a 9-month plan to travel. And I'm so proud of myself, because I took the first 2 months in Latin and South America, age 57, with a 22-inch roller and a backpack for 2 months. You know, and that was a big deal, right? So I traveled by train to DC, by plane to San Jose, California, spent overnight there, met up with my bunch. We were going to a yoga and writing retreat in the rainforest on the Caribbean side. So we had to be transported by shuttle across the country to the Caribbean side. And then we pull up to the base of this retreat, and it was so rocky that they put us in 3 different 4-wheel Jeeps to take us up there. And so it was it was a phenomenal experience. I'm still friends with a lot of those ladies. Well, one of the ladies was part of a travel group while I lived in New York, Jeannie Mark. And she was one of the writing coaches. And at the time, she lived in Boca de Toro. Well, I needed to make my way down to Cusco, Peru. And so she had already told me before, you can travel with me across the border to Panama, and we'll go to Boca de Toro, and I will help you navigate these ways because you need to make your way to Panama City. The flights are so much cheaper from Panama to Lima. And so this crazy thing is we're on the shuttle van, but it can only take you to the border of Panama and Costa Rica. So from there, we get out and we have to cross the border on a train track over a river and these kids are carrying our luggage on their shoulders in front of us. And so I'm crossing this train track, going, are they trustworthy? I mean, and there's like water running in between the train travel tracks. And then we get to the other side and we have to check in through customs. And Jeannie's telling me, she goes, you got to just say this. You got to be prepared to bribe them. You know, she had been on this trek very much. And wow. So I've got my $200 to the side and everything. And we get up and we're sweltering. And they're sitting in air conditioning. And I just smiled my biggest Southern girl smile and said, oh my God, that air conditioning feels so good. And they broke out laughing and they like, boom, boom, boom. They said, she goes, that was the fastest customs thing I've ever seen. And then we make it from the shuttle down to this little town, tiny town, and we literally take a motorboat over to Boca de Toro, and it's bouncing, and I literally got my arm on holding onto my luggage on the back of the boat. I'm just like, and I'm ready for anything. So then we're there. She goes off to her other island. I have a great dinner. Now I've got to make my way by myself with poquito Espanol. And I take that same boat and then I've got a 10-hour bus ride, overnight bus ride from there to Panama. So I do that. I'm not gonna tell you all about Panama because I did have a side trip to the ER. As a result of whatever I ate in Boca de Toro. And so then I make myself down to Lima. And then I take a puddle jumper to Cusco and I live for a month. I'm going to language school to learn how to teach English as a foreign language for my future retirement so that I can travel the world as a retiree because I'm not wealthy. And from there, I mean, taxi rides, anything but riding a llama, you know. The last day I was sick for 3 days. I made it through language school. I've got one more day before I go back to Costa Rica. And I decide I'm going to Machu Picchu. I didn't get to do the Enchanted Valley, but what I did was get up at 3 a.m. Saturday morning, take another long bus trip, took a train to the base of Machu Picchu, took a shuttle up to, well, it's the city beneath Machu Picchu. And I did all of that in a day, met great people, came home, packed, left at 3 a.m. and caught the plane back to Costa Rica, where I was staying for another week. And then we did zip lining, hiking, the aeronal. So, I mean, literally in 2 months, I did every mode of transportation except for riding the llama.
It's like, oh my God, you're definitely an aggressive traveler. And
the thing I like is that, yes, I did a lot of things, but it wasn't what I would call, you know, when people have to have their watch and they time it about all the places they have to hit. I had highlights, right? But I wasn't timed. In fact, I don't wear a watch when I'm on vacation.
Oh, wow.
And
that's amazing.
So that was my 2-month foray. I had meant to travel for 9 months, and that's another story, but it really literally was Oh, and I drove in Costa Rica. So it's my 5th country to drive in.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, so I'm
Automobile,
very
boat.
fearless in, okay, what are the rules? What do I need to know? What basic phrases do I need? And I'll figure it out.
Awesome. Oh my God. It kind of, I know Melissa's still on, but she's not on video, but it sounds she and her husband ended up having something like that. They got on a bus and they got and this and that, and they did all this stuff. So it's amazing. So I don't quite travel like that. It's a little bit more slow travel, but anyway, it's delightful. And thank you so much for sharing your story.
Well, thanks for
Darlene.
fitting me in.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And so,
I need to show you all my show and tells. This is a runner with a beautiful, can you see it?
oh, a little bit. Yes. Wonderful. Oh my God.
And
Yes,
you don't
lots
have
of
very
things.
much room when you have 2 tiny pieces of luggage. So
Right.
I have one of those little chess sets,
Oh, beautiful.
with the Spanish
Oh.
conquistadors and the Incans and
So beautiful. Oh my God. Well, I'm going to do this again, so you'll have to bring back the other things.
okay.
This isn't the last time. Yes, so I am going to pass it on to Cheryl. We have 2 more story sharers. I know it is 8:41 here. So but thank you so much, Darlene. I know that Cheryl needs to leave shortly, so I'm going to turn it over to her to share the story of her travel thing. And thank you very much. And hopefully we'll see you next time. And Cheryl, I'm spotlighting you. So thanks, Darlene. And here you go, Cheryl.
Well,
right.
one advantage of going overtime is I was feeling very nervous, like, how can I do this in 3 minutes? But now I know that I don't have to do it in 3 minutes.
Well, you don't have to do it in 3 minutes, but we still have John who's coming on. So we're trying to keep.
Yeah, that was a reference to ones that went way over 3 minutes.
Way over.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sitting in front of a bookcase in my bedroom, and I have a special shelf that I have called my Pat Conroy shelf. I am a huge fan of Pat Conroy, and I've extended the shelf to include several other authors and artists from the Low Country. And my story about this is that in 1981, my good friend's adult son, got a job in Charleston, South Carolina. We're in Pittsburgh. And so he traveled to become a teacher there. And that just a few months later, Hurricane Hugo came through and he was saved. That wasn't a problem. His mom and dad decided to go down to visit him toward the end of the year. And Shirley and I were just passionate about Pat Conroy. We read all his books, we saw the movies, and she came back from her trip and she was telling me all these areas that she had seen that were, in his books. And she brought a brochure home with her from a condo development in Isle of Palm, South Carolina, which is one of the barrier islands. And it had been hit very hard by Hugo. And part of it had been repaired well enough. And she showed me those brochures and she said, look at the prices, you could go there and really have a nice couple of weeks. So we did that with our 2 kids. And when we arrived, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I can feel what it felt like to be there. We got out of the car to go get the key for our unit. And I've never been in such a humid situation. You could just see, it wasn't fog, it was humidity. And we pulled into the parking lot of the realtors, and right next to it was a big gravel lot. And in the middle of the gravel lot was this water tower. And I'm just thinking, what did we get ourselves into here? We found our way to the condo development, and we stopped and carried our things up the stairs. And, it didn't feel like the ocean. We let our two kids go to sleep, and Joe and I left and walked through the driveway between two of the units. And it was as though curtains had parted. And in front of us was the most magnificent, beautiful scene with the palm trees and the ocean. And we had a really good time. My husband and I both worked in education, and our kids were in school, so we could only travel during the hot months. But we did go back a couple times, and we just really, really love the Low Country. And I know a lot of artists and writers in my neighborhood, but I think I know more there than I know here. And I wanted to just show a couple things from the shelf here, from the Pat Conroy shelf. I became very passionate about an artist whose name is Jonathan Green, and he paints these wonderful pictures of mostly Southern women. I was going to show a few, but I won't do that. And then, of course, we would go into Charleston, and we got the baskets that the women make. And then we met the famous iron worker named Philip Simmons. And we actually met him. We were on a gala tour, and he was on his way out the door to go to a doctor's appointment. He was very old by then. And I felt like I was meeting, a celebrity, which he was. And I didn't know what to say. And I just said, I love your stuff so much. And you're so wonderful. And he said, that's what the boys up in DC told me. And I said, oh, at the Smithsonian. He had just had one of his gates unveiled at the Smithsonian. So I have a couple books of his, and I have these tumblers that have
Beautiful.
These are actually his designs. And I have a scarf that has his design. And then when we were walking through Charleston one day, we happened upon an art gallery that had an exhibit by an artist named Mary White, W-Y-T-E. And I just love her things. She paints gala scenes. And I have a children's book that she wrote and several of her books of her paintings.
Amazing.
And the last thing is that prior to the pandemic, my husband and I went 6 years in a row and stayed all of November in the same condo unit. It's really shabby, doesn't have an elevator. We haven't been there in the 2 years of the pandemic, and I'm a little bit worried about being on the third floor without an elevator, as I am so much older than I was before the pandemic, but we're hoping to go.
All right. Wow. Thank you so much. We share a love of the Gullah culture as well. So my mother's been going down to Hilton Head, South Carolina for 19 years, as Cheryl knows. And I put in the chat, I think I'd mentioned it on Women on Fire too, that I met Cheryl through Get Set Up. .io, which is 55 and older learning community and connection community. And Cheryl runs a meetup group as well on Friday evenings here on Eastern time. But you can find out all kinds of, I mean, they offer mostly free events on all kinds of subjects. So check that out. And without further ado, I am going to ask John to come up on stage and be the person who wraps this time together up. So again, John is somebody who I met through Location Indie, and met him and his husband at Camp Indie last September in Connecticut, and then got a chance to hang out once again at World Domination Summit in Portland this June. So I love his stories, and so take it away.
Thanks, Marty. And I was going to say to everybody else that in the chat, I was telling Marty it's probably best that I'm last because I could have talked the entire time. So somebody needs to cut me off appropriately. So, but yeah, I have a lot of stories I could tell, as you see from some of the mess behind me. That's where I grabbed one of the things that I'm going to show kind of symbolically, but just want to kind of take you back to like some backstory of what this is about, and it relates to a big trip that I took a long time ago now. So some of you who know me know that I was in the Peace Corps. I served for 2 years in Uzbekistan, which is a country in Central Asia. And after my service, Peace Corps gives you a bunch of money and they kind of send you off. And so I had no clue on what I wanted to do with my life. I had kind of done everything I could to avoid like the real world by, going to grad school and then Peace Corps. And then it's like, okay, now what? So I just decided to travel kind of at the last minute. And another colleague other volunteer friend and I decided to go together, and we just started going all over Southeast Asia ended up being a total of 8 months. So this time frame was 1999. I finished my service in November of 1999, and then we just went from Thailand through Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos. And actually, Natalee inspired me to go change my my shirt to a Lao t-shirt because Laos was kind of the springboard to where we were actually trying to get. As some of you remember, the 1999, December 31st, 1999 was a very important date. And there was something called Y2K that the rest of the world was freaking out about. So I had no idea what to expect, not having really used computers much in the 2 years before. But we really wanted to just get to a beach in Thailand every month. The island of Koh Phangan in Thailand has these full moon parties. And so that was our goal. We were in our 20s at the time. That was the goal. And for the millennium, to spend New Year's there, New Year's for the millennium. So it was we kept running across travelers who were going there, and they were saying, oh, everybody's going to go there, and there wasn't a lot of space. So we kind of decided we need to book it down there. So we hadn't really, I don't feel like we did Laos complete justice, but we did see some things there. But the story starts where we were on a pretty quick mission to get to the islands a week or so before the New Year's Eve. So we took buses. Well, we probably flew once, but I don't know if we took a train, but definitely cars and buses and walked across the border, stuff like that to get down there. And it was a really, really long series of days. There was a record cold streak in Bangkok. It was like 50 degrees Fahrenheit one day, which was very, very cold for Bangkok. But anyway, so we finally, went all the way down to where you could get the ferry to go over to the island. Got in, we just wandered around. There was no internet. There was no way for us to figure out where we were staying. We just wandered around the town, the beach town, to try to find a place. Every place was like, sorry, we don't have room. We don't have room. And then we noticed there was like this parking garage or something that had that they were constructing beds out of plywood in this open air, like, I don't know how to describe it really. It's like a kind of like a parking garage enclosure kind of thing. So that's where we ended up finding like one of the last few places to stay. And so we made it. So that's kind of the lead up to that. We finally made it there, got one of the last places to stay for the millennium, where we celebrated 2000 with about 24,998 other people. So the thing, I mean, I have a lot of things I could have shared. I probably should have. I still have a tank top that has like the new year, January 1st, and then it also has it in whatever the year it was in Thai, like they use different years. And then there's some paint on it. But this was something I got in Laos, which is why I mentioned Laos at the beginning. This is, one of the little tear off calendars from 2000. And I just keep it on my bookshelf as a reminder of the trip, which, this was kind of at the beginning of the trip. I didn't go back home until June of 2000, but yeah, so 2000 was how, or 2000 on the beach there was how I kicked off the millennium, and a couple decades in between. But now I don't have to worry about this full-time job thing anymore. I quit that. And so I'm hoping to go back to Thailand and other places. And
yes,
Mark is over here just looking to see what I'm going to say, because I could have gone in any direction with it. But anyway, that's that's what I'll stop there.
Oh, wow. That is, I love it. And it's so true. You had, we ended up dealing with that time where everybody was afraid of what was going to happen, and look at us now, 22 years later. So, and you and your husband have left your jobs and are soon to be within the end, before the end of the year. Mark, hi, congratulations. And who knows what adventures you're going to be on. So please, I know that you're doing all kinds of things, offering in the world. And so please feel free to add any of that information in the chat. I don't know if you, John the Traveler, I love that. John the Traveler. So it's like John and Mark the Travelers.
I have a lot of different aliases and names that I could use, so we'll have to be creative. And then yeah, all of my other socials have different weird names that are Uzbek that I didn't ever think would become usable. So that's another story for another time. Username travel.
Usernames. We definitely need to. We definitely have to do a show and tell about usernames and what name, all of the things like I have domain names that I'm working with Justin to manage because, you know, I've just had this really brilliant in air quotes idea of what what website or what name I should have, but I've got too many at this point, and so I think I need to manage them, and I don't think any of them are going to make me millions, so it's time to let them go. Maybe it hasn't cost me millions, but it's time to let them go. But anyway, thank you so much. It's, you know, I was just thinking when you were talking, because Darlene talked about this, I know Mellissa has a story like that, and you do too, and a couple of other people that I've talked to. Really, like, I think I need to change the name to planes, trains, automobiles, boats, buses, feet, bicycles, bikes, etc. because what was yours, Darlene? Like line?
Oh, I traveled on everything but the back of a llama.
Back of a llama. So we can put llama. I can put llama on there. You did a zip line.
I did.
So, I mean,
chicken buses.
Oh, look at that spiritual space to chicken buses. Yeah, chicken buses. So I think that, I honestly think that I have to do one that just includes people who've done, what is it? Aggressive travel. Show and tell aggressive travel. Anyway, that was a wonderful way to wrap us up for the evening. I really appreciate it. I will check my emails tomorrow to see if anybody does not want me to put this stuff online. I, you know, like the whole thing, and then I am going to edit it as well, but I don't think anybody has said that they don't want it shared, so I may share the whole thing right away. It's obviously going to take my video editor, the lovely Polly, some time to edit everything, but at least I'll put the entire thing out. And I really appreciate all of you and everyone who stayed to the very last minute, to the very last breath of story sharing and travels near and far and wide and deep. Oh, okay. I will be happy not to do that. So but I can share it, but not tag you. Is that what you're saying? Okay, I will check that. Just don't tag me on Facebook. All right, I won't. Okay, all right. I did on Instagram. Is that okay?
Yeah,
You're
that's
on.
fine. They're just Facebook users.
Okay.
There's just Facebook users, and they would understand, but I just would prefer not to
Okay.
call attention to it.
Okay. I will do that for you. All right. Very good, everyone. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you for listening, being one of the listeners and lookers and listeners, Mellissa. You have a great rest of your evening. Thank you, everyone, for showing and telling and looking and listening, and have a wonderful rest of your evening, everybody. Take care. Maybe we'll see you next month. It's past and present. It is September 11th, and it is what objects. It's not only about September 11th, but it's what objects sort of, you know, what objects hold the stories of loved ones who have passed away. So think about that if you want to join me, and have a wonderful evening. Take good care. Thank you, John, for wrapping us up. Nice to see you, Mark. Be well, everyone. Thanks again. Bye.